Time is 2:18 p.m. We're back on record.
Were Sterling Green members notified in advance of the items to be addressed at director meetings?
No.
Did the office staff maintain the books and records of Sterling Green?
The office staff maintain the books? and
Yes.
records? Okay, do you mean, were they stored, or did they work on?
Were they given to the office staff to store them?
That, I don't know.
Okay, so who maintained the books and records of Sterling Green?
They were kept in the office.
By whom?
That, I don't know.
Were they kept in the office that was managed by Dorothy MALVEAUX?
Yes.
Were the Sterling Green books and records made available to inspection by members when requested?
Yes.
Seal Security performed security for Sterling Green until its contract was terminated in 2014. Does that sound correct to you?
I'm not sure about the date, but I know that they were employed by the association, then they were terminated, but I couldn't say the date.
Do you know why it was terminated?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you know what Dorothy MALVEAUX's signature looks like?
No, I'm not sure.
All right, I think we're on Exhibit 6. I'm going to hand you Exhibit 6, which I think is approximately 29 pages. Hopefully.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to look at the exhibit?
Yes.
That exhibit consists of it's either 28 or 29 pages of documents, each with copies of 28 checks issued by Sterling Green to Dorothy MALVEAUX from February 2017 through March 2018. MALVEAUX signed those checks on behalf of Sterling Green, correct?
Yes,
And those checks are each in the amount of $100 and payable to Dorothy MALVEAUX, correct?
yes,
And each page in the exhibit also contains a copy of the back of a check with MALVEAUX's signature in the endorsement section, correct?
yes.
Was there a board of directors meeting in which the board authorized, and again, this is during your time on the board, was there a board of directors meeting in which it authorized Dorothy MALVEAUX to issue and sign checks on behalf of the association?
Um, to- oh, wait a minute. To issue and sign checks. No, this was done before I was put on the board.
What was done before you were put on the board?
Giving her the authorization to write and sign checks.
Okay. Nevertheless, my question stands, well, actually, so you're testifying that the board did authorize her to do that?
It was the board, the prior board before I was placed on the board.
I understand, but you're, just so we're clear, you're testifying here today that at some point before you're on the board held a vote, and in that vote, it voted to authorize MALVEAUX to issue and sign checks on behalf of the board.
Okay, well, I can't state that they held a vote, but it was my understanding that they had given her the authorization.
What is that understanding based upon?
It was what the other members of the board said.
What are the names of the other members who told you that?
I'm not for sure at that time who was on the board and who said what.
Okay. Have you ever seen a document reflecting a vote by the board to authorize her to sign, to issue and sign checks on behalf of the board?
No.
Okay. Can I see that exhibit for a second? Did the board ever authorize you to issue and sign checks on its behalf?
No.
These checks are all in the amount of $100, correct?
Yes.
Now, board of directors, members of the board of directors do not, while you're on the board, they did not receive a salary of any kind, correct?
No.
And for her work as manager, Dorothy MALVEAUX was paid by the board.
Yes.
She was paid a salary.
Yes.
Now, these checks, Dorothy MALVEAUX testified at her deposition on Tuesday that these checks were issued to her, one was issued to her every pay period, and she testified that every pay period is 2 weeks. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
She also testified that these checks were issued to her to compensate her for mileage and other expenses incurred by her for purchases that she made on behalf of the board. Was there a vote in which the board authorized Dorothy MALVEAUX to write herself $100 checks every pay period?
That was before the time that I got on the board.
And are you aware of the date on which the board voted to do that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Did you know that Dorothy MALVEAUX was paying herself $100 every pay period out of association funds while you were on the board?
No.
When did you first learn that she was doing that?
I'm not sure. I think the first time that I knew of any of that was when those documents were put online.
And when were these documents put online?
I have no idea because I didn't check the date.
Was it within the last 2 years?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm confused about something. You testified that you first learned of this practice of Ms. MALVEAUX during the past 2 years when the documents were posted online. But you also testified that you were told that the board had authorized her to do that at an earlier period when you were on the board. Or have I mischaracterized your testimony?
Okay. Well, I was saying that the prior board authorized her, but I didn't have knowledge that they had authorized her to the pay every 2 weeks for her gas mileage or whatever it was. I wasn't aware because I wasn't on the board when that was done.
When this information was posted online, were you on the board at that time?
Yes, I was.
Did MALVEAUX, strike that, does Sterling Green own vehicles?
Yes.
How many?
I'm not sure how many.
During her time, Dorothy MALVEAUX is no longer manager for Sterling Green, correct?
Yes.
Was she fired at some point?
Yes.
While she was manager, strike that, just so we have an understanding of the period we're talking about. Dorothy MALVEAUX was a manager at the time you joined the board,
Yes.
and that was in what year?
I think it was around 2010.
Okay. And she remained manager until the spring of 2018. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would you say, you testified earlier that other board members informed you that the board authorized MALVEAUX to, one, issue and sign checks on behalf of the board, and two, issue checks to herself for mileage and other expenses incurred on behalf of the association? And you learned that at some point while you were on the board from other board members?
Okay, are you asking me that I learned this from other board members?
I guess what I'm trying to find out is, I know you don't recall the date, but would you say you learned this information from other board members during the first 4 years you were on the board or the second 4 years?
I don't remember a time period. I just know at some point it came up. I don't remember the year. And that's when I guess some of the members that was on the board that had been on there for several years, I guess they were aware of this, but I can't give you a time period.
Okay. I'm still trying to work out what you learned from other board members and what you learned from documents being posted online. Am I correct that you learned that Dorothy was authorized to issue checks to her, authorized to issue checks and authorized to issue checks to herself for mileage and expenses from other members of the board while you were on the board at some point?
Okay, well, I know she was authorized to write checks to pay bills.
Right, I'm just trying to confirm that you've got that information from other board members as opposed to some other source.
As opposed to some other source.
I'll ask it again, I'll try to be more clear.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
trying to confirm. You became aware that Dorothy MALVEAUX had been authorized by the board to issue checks on its behalf and issue checks to herself for mileage and expenses from other members of the board.
Objection. I guess the answer will be yes.
Okay. So my question then is, you also said with regard to this exhibit, Exhibit 6, that you were not aware of something until these were posted online.
Okay, I'm not for sure.
Okay. When these were posted online during the past 2 years,
Yes, yes.
and when you saw these online,
Okay, I didn't see them.
someone told you that they saw them online?
Yes.
Who told you that?
I couldn't single out one person because when they went online, people was just talking about it.
When you heard about these being posted online, did you learn anything from that information that you did not already know?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Does Sterling Green keep records of expenditures that occur each year?
Of expenditures as far as the what's paid out to employees or
Any and all expenditures of any kind of Sterling Green Community Improvement Association?
yes, I'm sure.
Do you know what that document is?
I'm sure everything was put into the software program.
Well, what I'm getting at is, was there some sort of document that was prepared and issued each year that listed Sterling Green's expenditures for that year?
I'm not sure because I didn't work in the office, but I can't say for sure.
Okay. Are you aware of any audits being performed of the books of Sterling Green?
Now or in
At any time between now and the date you first joined the board?
there was I think at least one audit that I remember being done.
When was it done?
I don't remember the year.
Was it within the past 3 years?
I couldn't say for sure.
Do you know who performed the audit?
I don't remember the name of the firm, no.
Did you receive any documents or reports containing the results of the audit?
Yes.
And do you remember anything about the report?
Not specifically, no.
Do you remember anything generally?
Just that everything appeared to be in order.
Were there any policies with regard to spending that Dorothy MALVEAUX had to follow?
As to what items, what
Anything at all?
policies, none that I can think of now.
Did Dorothy MALVEAUX have to get approval from the board for each purchase that she made?
I think it depended on the dollar amount.
What was the threshold?
If I remember correctly, I think it was $1,000.
And how would the board express its approval of expenditures or purchases in excess of $1,000? Would it hold a vote?
Sometimes, but either she would call, because if it was something that that needs, if something would break at the association and need to be fixed, and then those of us that had a job, she would call or send a text or something and would let you know what had happened and that she had gotten bids, and then we would choose the person, you know, to do the work.
Would you agree with me that in order for the board to act on the association's behalf, it has to hold a vote?
I think it depends on the severity of the problem.
And when was the board required to hold a vote? And when was it not required when addressing problems?
I can't speculate on that.
Is that because you don't know?
As far as I know, that there was no concrete rules as to what had to be voted on and what didn't have to be.
I'll get to that. Do you know what MALVEAUX's salary was?
No, offhand, no.
Are you aware of anyone ever informing Miss MALVEAUX that she did not have authority to issue herself $100 checks every pay period?
No.
Did you ever have any role in in Sterling Green's preparation of its tax returns?
No.
Did you ever volunteer to do that?
No.
As you sit here today, do you feel you would have been qualified to do that?
According to my job, you don't do that.
Oh, I see. While you're an IRS employee, you don't help
Yes.
people prepare tax returns?
Yes, no.
Okay. MALVEAUX also acknowledged in her deposition this week that even at the time she was issuing $100 checks to herself every pay period, she was also using a Sterling Green credit card that had been issued by Wells Fargo. Did you know that MALVEAUX, did you know before today that MALVEAUX had a Sterling Green credit card?
Yes.
Are you aware of any meeting in which the board of directors authorized her to use a Sterling Green credit card?
No, I think that was before my time.
Were you on the board in 2014?
Yes.
Ms. Malveaux testified that at one point, the office destroyed all Sterling Green records from prior to 2014. Were you aware that all Sterling Green records prior to 2014 had been destroyed?
No.
Objection for.
No.
What was the Sterling Green's policy with regard to the retention of records while you were on the board?
If I remember correctly, I think all records were kept for at least 7 years.
How many employees were issued Sterling Green credit cards?
As far as I know, none were issued. The employees, I don't know of any of the employees that had credit cards.
Well, was Dorothy Malveaux issued a credit card in her capacity as an employee or her capacity as a director?
Oh, that I don't know.
But she was issued a credit card of Sterling Green.
I've never seen the card, but I heard that she has a card. That she had a card.
Did you ever review her expenditures?
No.
Do you know if any other board members reviewed her expenditures?
No, I don't.
If Sterling Green tax returns indicate that it did not deduct the $100 payments to Malveaux as a business expense, would that have been a mistake on the part of Sterling Green?
Objection for.
I have no idea.
Do you know whether Malveaux was obligated to report the $100 payments as income?
No, I don't.
Are you aware of any investigations conducted by the Harris County Sheriff's Office of Sterling Green while you were on the board?
Only hearsay.
And what did you hear through hearsay?
That the sheriff's office had been called to the office on several occasions for incidents that had happened.
Were these incidents involving disagreements between individuals or involving Sterling Green records?
I think it was a combination of both of those.
And what else did you hear about the sheriff being called to the office?
I think that was basically about it.
And Susan Rice was an attorney for Sterling Green at one point?
Yes.
Did you know that she had a subpoena issued? Strike that. Do you know what the phrase "to quash" means? To quash.
Quash? No, I don't.
It's a legal term that effectively means that a subpoena is declared void and of no effect. Do you know what a subpoena is?
Yes.
Would you agree that a subpoena is a subpoena for records is an order to produce records?
Yes.
Were you aware that the Harris County Sheriff had issued a subpoena to Sterling Green for records and that Susan Rice had the subpoena quashed or canceled?
No.
Were you aware that Sterling Green paid Dorothy MALVEAUX cell phone bills in 2017 and 2018?
Objection 4.
No.
Are you aware of any board, Sterling Green board meetings in which it voted to authorize Dorothy MALVEAUX to use Sterling Green funds to pay her phone bills?
Objection
No.
MALVEAUX testified the board approved the purchase of a phone for her. Do you recall any board meetings in which the board authorized the purchase of a phone for Miss MALVEAUX?
4. Objection 4.
That was prior to the time that I got on the board.
Were you told that such a vote had occurred?
I don't remember.
Well, what exactly was it that occurred prior to the time that you were on the board?
Objection 4.
Could you clarify that?
I asked you if you were aware of any board meeting in which it authorized Sterling Green funds to be used to purchase a phone for Miss MALVEAUX, and you said that occurred prior to when I was on the board.
Yes.
So my question is, are you testifying that you were told that prior to the time that you served on the board, let me start over. Are you testifying that you were told by someone that prior to your time on the board approved the purchase of a phone for Miss MALVEAUX's use?
Objection 4.
No, no.
Well, then, I guess what I'm wondering is, I guess I'll start over. Did the board at some point approve the purchase of a phone for Miss MALVEAUX's use?
If the board approved it, it was prior to the time that I was on the board.
Okay. Had you ever heard from someone that the board had in fact done that?
No.
Would you mind handing me that? I think we're up to Exhibit 7. Please review the exhibit. New York Post. Okay. Have you had a chance to review the document?
Yes.
Let me ask you a general question. Would you agree that it would be inappropriate? Let me start over. Sterling Green collects assessments from the members and uses that money to provide services to members and to operate the homeowners association, correct?
Yes.
And it would be inappropriate for Sterling Green to just give away money to people, because really Sterling Green is the agent of the members. They're acting on behalf of the members, right?
Objection.
They'd be giving away members' money.
Objection.
Okay, what do you mean by giving away the members' money?
Let's say, just to use a complete hypothetical that'll never make it to the jury, let's say there were workers who were working outside and it was extremely hot over 3 months, and they did great work on something outside, and the office wanted to give each of them a $1,000 bonus. It would be inappropriate for the office to do that, because that's not why people pay assessments. Don't you agree?
The office cannot give them a bonus.
Because they don't have authority from the board.
That's right.
If the board authorized it, would it be appropriate?
If the board approved it, I guess so.
I guess what I'm getting at is, do you feel like the board had a duty to be careful with spending money that had been contributed in the form of assessments?
Yes.
What do you think the money that was contributed in the form of assessments should have been used for while you were on the board?
To take care of the association.
The document that I gave you indicates that Sterling Green made numerous payments other than wages and other than mileage to Miss MALVEAUX. Would you agree with that?
Objection.
That's what the document states.
Okay. And just to be clear, during the entire time you were on the board, am I correct that MALVEAUX was the only Sterling Green employee authorized to issue and sign checks on behalf of the association?
Objection.
I think the president of the association, but I'm not sure, but I think that the president was authorized to sign checks.
Okay. But as far as employees, would you agree that MALVEAUX was the only employee who was authorized to issue and sign checks on behalf of the association?
She's the only one that I know of,
Okay.
yes.
Does it indicate in the upper right-hand corner of that document that the total amount of the payments to MALVEAUX by the association was $33,085.77?
Yes, on this document, yes.
Okay. Does that document also indicate that some of the mileage entries were for $150 instead of $100?
I
I can help you find it.
okay.
January 2010, is there a mileage check for $150?
January 2010.
Yes.
Yes, that's what's stated here.
Okay. So, do you know if the board authorized her to issue herself mileage and expense checks of $100 or $150 or both?
Objection.
I have no idea because, like I stated before, that was done before I was appointed to the board.
And then is there on the third line in that, on this, I guess it would be page 3 of Exhibit 10, does it indicate there's a $150 payment for mileage on about November 10, 2009? I believe it's the third line.
Yes, that's what's stated here on this statement.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then on February 15 and March 2nd, there are also mileage payments of $150. Is that correct?
You see, that was February?
February 15 and March 2nd?
February 15th. Yes, according to this statement on February 15th.
And March
you say
2nd.
March 2nd. On March 2nd, this check states computer. It doesn't,
Okay. Are you sure you're not looking at the, there's 2 checks, or actually 3 checks for March 2nd. And I'm looking at the, no, there's 4 checks for March 2nd, and I'm looking at the first of the 4.
oh, okay, the first, okay, on March 2nd, Okay, yes, there is on according to this statement, $150.
And am I correct that it indicates that there were 4 different checks issued on that date to MALVEAUX?
Objection 4.
According to this statement.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Section 2, paragraph A. Let's see. Article 6, Section 2, paragraph A of the bylaws, Exhibit 3, provides for the Board of Directors to cause to be kept a complete record of all its acts and corporate affairs and to present a statement thereof to the members at the annual meeting. During your time on the board, did it comply with that requirement?
To give the homeowners what at the annual meeting?
A statement of a complete record of all of its acts and corporate affairs.
No.
It did not comply with that requirement.
That was not, you say, you mean that we would have to give them a copy of everything that we did for the year? Is that your question?
No, it's, the phrase that's used is a complete record of all of its acts and corporate affairs, and to present a statement thereof to the members at the annual meeting.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. There's an annual meeting every year, correct?
Yes,
And that's in March.
yes.
At the March meeting that occurs every year, are any documents distributed to the members?
I don't remember any being distributed.
Are any documents made available to the members online or electronically transmitted to them?
I don't know.
Okay. So would it be accurate to say that with regard to that provision of the bylaws, you don't know whether the Board of Directors complied with it while you were on it?
Yes,
And you had no role in maintaining those types of records, did you?
no.
And those types of records, if they existed, would have been stored in the office?
Yes.
While you were on the board, were documents generated with the minutes for all Board of Director meetings and all Board of Director executive meetings?
Were documents generated? Do you mean what?
Containing the minutes of meetings.
Okay,
Were minutes created for each meeting?
Oh, yes, yes.
Every meeting without exception?
Yes, I don't remember any not being done.
Okay. And do you know what the statutory requirements applicable to the creation of those documents is?
No.
Article 4, Section 6 of the bylaws provides that no director shall receive compensation for any services he or she may render to the association. Did you know there was such a clause in the bylaws?
Yes.
Did you ever consider the possibility that MALVEAUX receiving compensation while she was on the board of directors from the association violated that provision?
No.
Did you ever hear anyone make that suggestion?
Yes.
Who?
Tom Olson.
Anyone else?
I can't think of anyone else.
Did Olson make that suggestion in the presence of Miss MALVEAUX?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure she was present, yes.
Well, where did he make this suggestion? In a board of directors meeting?
Yes.
What other directors were present?
Whoever was on the board at that time.
Do you recall anyone's reaction to his suggestion?
I'm not sure.
Was an attorney present?
I don't remember if one was at that time.
While you were on the board, Sterling Green received assessment payments of members, and the assessment amount was $270, and it was due in January of each year?
Yes.
At any time while you're on the board, to the extent you're aware of it, did Sterling Green foreclose on the properties of members?
No.
Did a lawyer named Chris Connery represent the association at any time while you were on the board?
Yes.
Are you aware of whether the association and Mr. Connery entered into and executed a written contract pertaining to his legal services?
No.
Do you have any knowledge regarding the fee arrangements entered into by Sterling Green and Mr. Connery?
No.
Do you have any idea what his hourly fees are?
No.
Do you know whether the agreement provided for him to be paid on a contingency or an hourly basis?
No.
Do you know who signed the contract on behalf of Sterling Green?
No.
Can you identify the date and year of a Sterling Green board meeting in which it authorized the hiring of Chris Connery as counsel for Sterling Green?
I don't remember.
Do you know who James Young is?
No.
I'll represent to you that he formerly represented Sterling Green. And other attorneys in his office communicated with Sterling Green. Have marked as Exhibit 8. An email of a Mr. Holtz of the law firm of Holt Young to Sterling Green, sgsterlinggreen@yahoo.com, dated Wednesday, June 21, 2017. Please take a look at that. I'm only going to ask you questions about the first page of that document.
Okay.
Have you had a chance to review that?
Yes, the first page.
Okay. May I see it for a second? The document, the email begins with the phrase, "Thank you for your responses, Dorothy," correct?
Yes.
Okay. Am I correct that in the second paragraph there, Mr. Holtz is stating that the last association election, that proper notice was not provided for the election?
Objection form.
Here it states, okay, I'm sorry, I misread it. Yeah, well, he typed here that he disagreed, yes.
And that he believes improper notice was provided for the last election.
Objection form.
That's what his statement says.
Okay.
We've been going about an hour. We're ready for break.
That's fine.
Okay.
Time is 3:16 PM. We're off record.